Is there anywhere else in the world where enormous granite formations and ancient forests still remain almost untouched like Yosemite? Ancient glaciers that once covered the Sierra Nevada left behind smooth granite cliffs, deep canyons, and massive rocky landscapes stretching across the park. During spring, melting snow pours from the high mountains into the valley, creating white mist across Yosemite's towering granite walls. The pine forests and giant sequoias here became an important habitat for American black bears, mule deer, and many high mountain animal species. Between granite cliffs, glacial rivers, and forests thousands of years old, Yosemite still preserves the same wilderness that existed long before humans arrived. After miles of mountain wilderness inside Yosemite National Park, the landscape of the Sierra Nevada suddenly changes as enormous tree trunks begin covering the sky itself. Mariposa Grove is home to more than 500 mature giant sequoias, the largest living organisms on Earth by volume. Inside this forest, time no longer feels measured by human lifetimes. The first giant sequoias of Mariposa Grove began growing thousands of years ago when many ancient civilizations did not yet exist. In 1864, the Yosemite Grant was signed by Abraham Lincoln, turning this area into one of America's first protected natural reserves. But even these giants could not escape modern human impact. For decades, roads and parking lots were built beside their trunks, severely damaging their ancient root systems. Between 2015 and 2018, Yosemite launched a $40 million restoration project removing infrastructure near the grove and returning natural space to trees that have lived for more than 3,000 years. Giant sequoias possess thick, fire-resistant bark, filled with tannins that protect against insects and disease. Some trees, like grizzly giant, have existed since the era of the Roman Empire. California tunnel tree still survives even after humans carved a tunnel directly through its trunk generations ago. These forests also shelter black-tailed deer, Douglas squirrels, and many deep forest birds of the Sierra Nevada. Inside Mariposa Grove, people almost disappear beneath the feeling of standing beside something older than human history itself. After Yosemite's silent cliffs sink into the darkness of winter, a thin stream of water begins appearing along the eastern face of El Capitan. With a height of about 2,130 feet, this seasonal waterfall exists only for a few months each year. But during a few brief minutes in February, it looks like molten lava pouring down from the sky. The phenomenon only happens when every condition aligns perfectly. Snow on the mountaintop must melt strongly enough. The western sky must remain completely clear, and the sunset light must strike the falling water at an almost perfect angle. When that happens, Horsetail Fall transforms into the famous Fire Fall of Yosemite. Long ago, the park had an artificial fire fall where burning embers were pushed off Glacier Point every night. That tradition ended in 1968, but a few years later, photographer Galen Rowell captured the waterfall glowing like molten rock, and nature completely replaced humanity's performance. The granite cliffs surrounding the waterfall are nearly barren, with only lichen clinging to the cold stone surface. Beneath the waterfall, mist creates a rare patch of moisture where pine trees and shrubs grow among broken rocks. Every firefall season, thousands travel to Yosemite just to wait for a few minutes of evening light touching the thin stream of water, turning this place into one of the park's most famous tourist symbols. There is no trail leading to the top of the waterfall. Most people simply stand from a distance beneath the cold sunset, waiting for the massive stone wall to ignite for a few short minutes before slowly sinking back into darkness. Beneath the massive granite cliffs of Yosemite National Park, Yosemite's meadows begin filling with long ribbons of purple and blue, flowing across the Sierra Nevada. This is where lupine thrives most strongly. A wildflower from the pea family that creates one of the park's most iconic landscapes. More than 20 different lupine species grow throughout Yosemite, from dry lower elevations to the cold meadows of Tuolumne Meadows. Behind its delicate beauty stands one of the Sierra Nevada's most important restoration engineers. Early Europeans named lupin from the Latin word lupus, meaning wolf, because they believed the plant drained nutrients from barren soil. In reality, the opposite is true. Through a symbiotic relationship with root bacteria, lupine fixes nitrogen from the air and returns nutrients to the soil. This process helps burned forests and landslides recover after natural disasters. Today, lupine blooming periods also serve as an important measurement tool for scientists tracking temperature changes and snowmelt throughout Yosemite. Lupine flowers grow in tall spires covered with dozens of small blossoms, creating purple, blue, and violet-pink bands spreading across Yosemite Valley. Their flowers provide critical nectar for bees, butterflies, and many Sierra Nevada pollinators. Some native communities once used lupin for medicinal purposes, although many species contain dangerous toxins if improperly handled. Across the windy Yosemite meadows, the lupine fields still sway like living streams of color flowing through the Sierra Nevada. From the high meadows where wind moves slowly through the Sierra Nevada, water begins gathering into a cold and transparent current that almost seems colorless. Merced River cuts through the center of Yosemite National Park like a lifeline between enormous granite cliffs. The river surface stays so calm that it reflects the sky and towering rock walls almost perfectly, making it difficult at times to know what is real and what exists only on the water. Millions of years ago, when glaciers retreated from Yosemite, Merced River continued the work left behind by the ice, carving through stone, carrying sediment, and shaping the valley floor. In 1806, Spanish explorers named it El Rio de Nuestra Señora de la Merced, after discovering fresh water in a dry land, a name carrying more gratitude than discovery. Nearly 2 centuries later, people once again had to protect the river from tourism and development. In 1987, a large section of the Merced was added to the National Wild and Scenic Rivers system, not to change the river, to keep it from being changed. Upstream, water from Nevada Fall and Vernal Fall crashes down in freezing white foam before spreading into the valley. Along the banks, maple and oak forests grow beside flooded meadows where black-tailed deer often appear at dusk. Rainbow trout move beneath the darker pools where the river reflects El Capitan and Half Dome like massive stone structures floating above still water. Not everything in Yosemite is remembered through roaring waterfalls or towering cliffs. Sometimes, what stays the longest is only the sound of cold water moving slowly through a valley older than human memory. In Yosemite, some rock formations do not need to be the tallest or the most famous to make people stop and stare. Three Brothers is a granite tower formation located on the northern side of Yosemite Valley, just east of El Capitan. The three peaks, Eagle Peak rising 7,782 feet high, Middle Brother and Lower Brother, resemble gigantic stone steps climbing into the Sierra Nevada sky. The name Three Brothers did not come from geology. It originated during the Mariposa War of 1851, when soldiers captured the three sons of Chief Tenaya near the base of these mountains. It was a period when the Ahwahneechee people were forced to leave their ancestral homeland. Before receiving its current name, the native people called this place Compo Paizes, meaning mountains with heads like frogs preparing to jump. Geologically, the entire formation was created from ancient granite magma and later carved by glaciers over millions of years. Late afternoon is when Three Brothers becomes most impressive. Golden sunlight strikes the granite surface, turning the peaks into glowing bronze towers, while the Merced River reflects the entire landscape like a gigantic mirror. Around the base of the mountains are California black oak forests, ponderosa pines, and cedar trees, home to American black bears, mule deer, and peregrine falcons. Perhaps that is what makes Three Brothers different within Yosemite, a place where magnificent nature and painful history still exist, side by side. Beyond the giant mist clouds of Yosemite Falls, the water continues plunging from Upper Yosemite Fall, the tallest and most violent section of the famous waterfall system inside Yosemite National Park. With a height of about 1,430 feet, it is one of the tallest plunge waterfalls in the world. The water begins at Yosemite Creek on the Sierra Nevada Plateau, before suddenly dropping over the granite cliffs above Yosemite Valley. Ancient glaciers created the hanging valley where Upper Yosemite Fall crashes down between Yosemite's enormous granite walls. Between 1873 and 1877, the park built Yosemite Falls Trail, a famous hiking route filled with steep switchbacks and rocky climbs. From the valley floor, Upper Yosemite Fall appears like a massive white column falling between silver-gray granite cliffs. Sunny mornings often create floating rainbows inside the cold mist surrounding the rocks. Higher elevations gradually shift from California black oak forests to Jeffrey pine clinging tightly to dry granite cracks. Upper Yosemite Fall is also Yosemite's most recognizable visual symbol and serves as a natural observation point for studying wildfires, granite erosion, and Sierra Nevada water cycles. Standing near the edge of Upper Yosemite Fall during late spring feels as though all of Yosemite Valley has opened directly beneath your feet, beside the endless roar of falling water. But not every gigantic rock mass exists as a sheer vertical wall. Half Dome stands on the eastern side of Yosemite Valley, famous for its shape resembling a gigantic granite dome cut in half. One side is almost completely vertical, while the remaining sides are smooth and rounded after millions of years of glacial erosion. Inside this enormous granite mass lies a geological history stretching back millions of years. Half Dome formed from magma cooling deep underground before being lifted upward by tectonic movement in the Sierra Nevada. But here is what makes it unique. A geological exfoliation process caused the outer granite layers to continuously crack and peel away, creating the dome shape seen today. In 1875, George Anderson became the first person to reach the summit, while the cable system installed in 1919 transformed the site into Yosemite's most famous climbing challenge. The higher you climb, the fewer trees remain, leaving only lichens and small shrubs attached to the cold granite surface. From more than 8,530 feet above sea level, all of Yosemite opens into a 360-degree panorama of waterfalls, pine forests, and cliffs stretching toward the Sierra Nevada horizon. But the most dangerous part lies at the end of the route, where two steel cables lead directly up a steep and slippery rock face. For many climbers, touching the summit of Half Dome is not only about conquering height, but also overcoming their greatest fear. Along the high eastern slopes of Yosemite National Park, there are movements almost impossible to notice with the naked eye. A gray-brown figure crosses a granite wall before disappearing into the steep terrain of the Sierra Nevada. The Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep is the rarest mammal in Yosemite, usually living above 9,840 feet near areas such as Mount Dana and Mount Gibbs. During the 19th century, hunting and diseases carried by domestic sheep nearly erased this species from Yosemite. By 1999, it was officially listed as critically endangered. But beginning in 2014, scientists started reintroducing sheep from other Sierra Nevada regions back into the eastern side of the park. Small herds slowly returned to the cold and dry mountain slopes, where almost no large trees survive. It became one of the rare wildlife recovery efforts in the United States that truly succeeded. Their hooves have a unique structure. hard outer edges for gripping rock and soft inner pads acting almost like rubber for balance on near vertical cliffs. That climbing ability is their only escape from mountain lions. During summer, they move into alpine areas, searching for fresh grass. In winter, the herds descend to lower elevations to avoid the deep snow of the Sierra Nevada. In Yosemite, seeing a Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep in the wild is so rare that many climbers consider it a sign of luck from the mountain itself. As darkness begins swallowing the granite cliffs of Yosemite National Park, an almost invisible predator starts moving through the forests of the Sierra Nevada. The mountain lion, also known as the cougar, is the apex predator ruling more than 1,160 square miles of Yosemite wilderness. They appear from mist-covered valleys to freezing rocky slopes. But most of the time, the only thing they leave behind is the feeling of being watched in the dark forest. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, mountain lions were seen as threats that needed to be eliminated. California hired professional hunters to track them across the Sierra Nevada to protect livestock and new settlements. Many disappeared from Yosemite, but as conservation thinking changed, the park gradually became one of the last major refuges for this predator in California. Mountain lions are the fourth largest cats in the world, with sandy brown fur blending perfectly into Yosemite's granite and dry grass. They can leap as high as 16 feet and more than 39 feet in a single bound. No thunderous roar, only long screams echoing through the night forest like something trapped deep in the mountains. They hunt mule deer, bobcats, and even bear cubs when necessary. For the indigenous tribes around Yosemite, the mountain lion symbolized power and the will to survive. And within the cold darkness of the Sierra Nevada, this animal still exists as part of a wilderness that never truly belonged to humanity. Morning usually arrives very slowly in this part of Yosemite. Massive granite cliffs around Mirror Lake hold the sunlight high above, leaving the water below cold and dark, even after much of Yosemite National Park has already brightened. The lake rests between Half Dome and North Dome like a forgotten pool beneath the valley walls. When the wind stops moving, the entire granite face appears across the water with almost unreal clarity. Mirror Lake was once part of a much larger glacial lake, but sediment from small streams and melting snow has slowly filled the basin over centuries. That process is still happening, so slowly, it is almost invisible. Park managers understand that this mirror will eventually disappear, yet they continue allowing nature to follow its own course instead of dredging or interfering. No rescue, no reversal. Only a lake, slowly becoming a meadow, and eventually, a forest. During spring, snowmelt expands the lake into a smooth sheet of water reflecting half-dome beneath the cold blue sky. By late summer, the water retreats and exposes damp sandbars and wetlands where small birds and amphibians begin appearing. Rows of willow and cottonwood trees surrounding the lake turn bright gold in autumn, while photographers often wait before sunrise just to capture a few minutes of perfectly motionless water. The strangest thing here is not the reflection itself, but the feeling that the entire beautiful landscape is slowly disappearing exactly the way nature intended from the beginning. The sound of wind in the western area of Yosemite National Park is often trapped for a long time among the dense pine forests. At an elevation of about 6,191 feet, Crane Flat appears as a transition zone between the lower valley and the colder High Sierra farther away. In the morning, fog often settles over the small meadows, making the entire forest seem almost motionless beneath the pale light. The name Crane Flat appeared when the first explorers mistook the calls of sandhill cranes for the sound of cranes. Long before that, this place had already been an important route for indigenous people between the different climate regions of the Sierra Nevada. Today, Crane Flat still serves as a connection point and is also an important area for Yosemite's forest protection efforts. Among the tall sugar pines and the dense clusters of lodgepole pines, the forest carries a dark green color and a cool, damp atmosphere throughout the year. Sunlight only filters down in thin streaks onto the moss, ferns, and low shrubs covering the ground. In the early morning, fog drifts quietly past the tall, straight tree trunks, creating a scene so still it almost seems frozen. In the small, grassy clearings between the trees, great gray owls sometimes appear silently, while black bears often walk along the forest edge as evening falls. At Crane Flat, the strongest feeling is always that every road seems to lead deeper into the mountains. As Tioga Road climbs above the tree line and the air becomes thinner and colder, a deep blue lake suddenly appears between the bright granite formations of Yosemite National Park. Tenaya Lake rests at an elevation of around 8,150 feet, like a glacial basin forgotten in the High Sierra. The water stays so still that the granite domes and the sky seem fused together through the freezing reflection. Long before mountain roads or travelers crossed the Sierra Nevada, a massive glacier once moved through this region, grinding away solid granite and leaving behind a deep hollow after the ice disappeared. Snowmelt filled that space and the lake was formed. But this place does not only carry the history of geology, it also holds human memory. The Ahwahnechee people once called the lake Paiwiak, Lake of the Shining Rocks. In 1851, the Mariposa Battalion encountered the native community here and renamed the lake after Chief Tenaya, the final leader of the Ahwahnechee people. A new name appeared, but the older memory never disappeared. During the short, high Sierra summer, wildflowers grow along the shoreline between sparse lodgepole pine forests. Marmots lie across stone slabs absorbing rare warmth, while black-tailed deer appear near the forest edge as daylight begins fading. What makes the lake famous is not its size, but the almost unreal blue color of the water, making the entire landscape resemble a photograph that has never been touched. At that elevation, even the sound of a paddle lightly touching the lake feels too loud for a place that seems created to preserve silence. The light at the western entrance of Yosemite Valley often changes very quickly. Just minutes earlier, the granite cliffs were still buried in darkness, then suddenly lit up as the mist from Bridalveil Fall carried sunlight down onto the meadow below. Bridalveil Meadow lies between Bridalveil Creek and massive rock formations, like a green clearing opening just before the road continues deeper into central Yosemite. This meadow formed after glaciers retreated from the valley, leaving behind soft sediment that holds water year-round. The Ahwahnechee people once believed the mist from Bridalveil Fall brought luck and love. But over time, that beauty placed the area under pressure from excessive tourism. The soft ground slowly became compacted beneath millions of footsteps, and wooden walkways were built to protect the meadow from disappearing. In spring, western azaleas bloom along the water's edge, covering the damp ground with pale white colors and spreading a gentle fragrance through the mist near the waterfall. Around the meadow, low pine clusters and shrubs grow between massive granite slabs, creating a quiet and wild landscape. Woodpeckers often echo through the old trees, while black-tailed deer sometimes step into the meadow at dawn when the ground is still cold and wet. At Bridalveil Meadow, even the air always feels as though it is moving very slowly around the waterfall. Among the quiet pine forests of Yosemite National Park, a rapid series of knocks sometimes echoes through the cold air of the Sierra Nevada. The white-headed woodpecker is one of Yosemite's rarest and most distinctive birds. They are often found around Crane Flat, Hodgdon Meadow, and the forests along Glacier Point Road, where ancient pine trees still stand across the mountains. This bird evolved alongside the conifer forests of western North America for thousands of years. It depends almost entirely on mature pine forests and standing dead trees for nesting. But during recent decades, intense wildfires and the loss of old-growth forests have continued shrinking its habitat. Because of this, Yosemite has become one of the most important refuges protecting this unusual bird. Biologists consider the stable presence of the white-headed woodpecker as evidence that Sierra Nevada's pine forests still retain their natural structure. It is the only woodpecker species in North America with a completely black body and a pure white head standing out against the dark forest. Males carry a small red patch behind the head. Instead of constantly drilling deep into trees searching for insects, they often peel bark away or search for seeds from large pine species such as sugar pine and Jeffrey pine. The nesting cavities they leave behind later become shelter for many smaller birds and flying squirrels throughout Yosemite. Across the vast Sierra Nevada, this small bird quietly continues helping ancient forests survive. Beneath the cold and crystal-clear waters of Yosemite National Park, brightly colored creatures still move silently through the streams of the Sierra Nevada. Native trout live within the Merced and Tuolumne river systems and the high mountain lakes of Yosemite. They are nearly invisible beneath the reflections of granite cliffs, appearing only for brief moments like flashes of silver cutting through rushing water. Yosemite's rainbow trout share a deep genetic connection with steelhead, the migratory trout that once swam hundreds of miles inland from the Pacific Ocean through the Sierra Nevada to spawn. But by the late 19th century, dams appeared and completely severed that ancient journey. Humans began introducing fish into high lakes that once contained no aquatic life at all. In 1895, a fish hatchery was built near the Merced River, marking the beginning of major human changes to Yosemite's ecosystem. Even after centuries of isolation, studies show that the trout here still carry the migratory instincts of their steelhead ancestors within their DNA, like a memory that never fully disappeared. Native trout survive only in extremely cold, clean, oxygen-rich water. Their streamlined bodies and pink-red stripe make rainbow trout glow beneath sunlight breaking through the water's surface. They are an important food source for black bears, birds of prey, and many other animals throughout Yosemite. Within the icy waters of the Sierra Nevada, native trout still swim against the current as if the ancient memory of the ocean continues living inside them. Some places in Yosemite were not created to be conquered, but to make people feel small. Glacier Point is an overlook, located about 7,214 feet above sea level on the southern rim of the valley. From this massive granite outcrop, visitors can look nearly 3,280 feet down into Yosemite Valley below. Unlike Yosemite's famous climbing cliffs, Glacier Point became legendary because of its sweeping views across nearly the entire park. But this place also carries a unique history. From 1872 to 1968, hotel workers pushed glowing embers off the cliff each summer night, creating the famous Yosemite Fall, an artificial waterfall of fire in the night sky. The event was eventually stopped to protect the natural landscape. Glacier Point was also where John Muir and President Theodore Roosevelt met in 1903, a conversation that helped shape America's national park system. Geologically, the entire region was formed as ancient glaciers carved massive granite into Yosemite's famous U-shaped valley. At sunset, Half Dome across the valley begins turning pink-orange beneath the alpine glow effect. while Yosemite Falls, Vernal Fall, and Nevada Fall appear through thin layers of Sierra Nevada mist. Surrounding the overlook are forests of red fir and sugar pine, along with summer meadows covered in lupine and Indian paintbrush flowers. In the cold silence, the calls of Steller's jays echo through the mountain wind. From Glacier Point, all of Yosemite appears like a gigantic painting shaped by granite, glaciers, and millions of years of time. Some moments in Yosemite last only a few seconds, yet remain in people's memories for an entire lifetime. Tunnel View is located just east of the Wawona Tunnel along State Route 41. As vehicles emerge from the darkness of the tunnel, the entire Yosemite Valley suddenly opens ahead like a gigantic natural stage. Tunnel View was built in 1933 at the same time as the completion of the Wawona Tunnel. The goal was simple: create a wow moment for anyone entering Yosemite for the first time, and that feeling still exists today. From this overlook, El Capitan rises on the left like a gigantic granite wall. Bridalveil Fall flows softly on the right, while Half Dome appears at the end of the valley like an ancient stone crown. The entire U-shaped landscape was carved by glaciers, eroding Sierra Nevada granite over millions of years. The famous black and white photographs taken here by Ansel Adams later transformed Tunnel View into a global symbol of Yosemite and the American conservation movement. Early morning is when Tunnel View becomes most beautiful. Thin fog drifts between the cliffs while the first sunlight slowly illuminates El Capitan and Bridalveil Fall. At the same time, golden eagles begin circling above the vast open space of the valley. Surrounding the overlook are forests of yellow pine and sugar pine stretching along the rocky mountain slopes. The combination of human engineering and Yosemite's untouched wilderness is what transformed this place into one of the most iconic landscapes in the United States. At the farthest edge of Yosemite National Park, Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias stands silently among the cold slopes of the Sierra Nevada, like a forest abandoned by time. More than 500 mature giant sequoias rise through thin layers of mist, many of them over 2,000 years old. From beneath their trunks, the sky almost completely disappears. The first seeds here sprouted thousands of years ago. But in 1864, this forest entered history when Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant Act, making it one of the first protected natural areas in the world. Not because of resources, because of its existence. More than a century later, tourism itself began suffocating the forest. Asphalt roads and parking lots were built beside the roots, compressing the soil around the ancient root systems. Then the $40 million restoration project began. Roads were removed. The ground was opened again, slow but necessary. Deep inside the forest, Grizzly Giant still stands like a living mountain nearly 3,000 years old. Its bark, thick and soft like sponge, protects it from wildfire and insects. What looks like destruction is actually how this species survives, because wildfire heat opens seed cones that have remained sealed for years. Farther ahead, California tunnel tree still carries the tunnel carved through its trunk during the 19th century. Mariposa Grove is not loud. It simply makes people feel smaller beneath living things that have existed longer than most of human history. From peaceful lands, the journey continues toward a place where stone and time rule everything. El Capitan stands on the northern side of Yosemite Valley in California's Sierra Nevada range. This is a massive granite monolith rising nearly 3,000 feet above the ground, almost perfectly vertical, and considered a global symbol of rock climbing. Hidden beneath its cold appearance is a geological history stretching back millions of years. El Capitan formed when molten magma slowly cooled deep underground, creating extremely hard granite before being lifted upward by tectonic movement. Later, ancient glaciers eroded the softer surrounding rock, leaving behind the nearly untouched cliff seen today. The Ahwah-Neechie people called this place Totokon Ula, meaning the chief. In 1958, Warren Harding completed the first ascent via the nose, while in 2017, Alex Honnold shocked the world by climbing El Capitan without ropes. On the valley floor, El Capitan looks like a gigantic stone wall blocking the sky itself. Inside the cold granite cracks, peregrine falcons still nest on narrow ledges, while drought-resistant plants cling to tiny fractures in the rock. At night, climbers sleep on hanging tents suspended hundreds of feet above the ground, floating in darkness and freezing wind. El Capitan is not only a symbol of Yosemite, but also a symbol of humanity's desire to push beyond its limits. After leaving behind Yosemite's cold granite landscapes, the scenery in the southern part of Yosemite National Park begins softening into wider and quieter grasslands. Wawona Meadow stretches near Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias, like a green clearing preserved between pine forests and low mountain slopes. Early mornings here are often covered in thin mist, making the entire meadow appear to drift slowly beneath the pale morning light. The name Wawona is believed to come from the sound of an owl in the Miwok language, a bird once seen as the guardian of the forest. During the 19th century, this place became an important stop for stagecoaches traveling toward Yosemite Valley. Before the National Park Service existed, U.S. cavalry troops were stationed here to stop illegal cattle grazing. Then in 1918, part of the meadow was turned into a golf course, making Wawona one of the few places in Yosemite where resort history and wilderness still exist, side by side. In late spring, wildflowers cover the low grasslands along the Wawona Meadow Loop Trail. Black bears often appear near the forest edge at sunrise, while black-tailed deer move slowly across the golden fields at the end of the day. This place is not dramatic like Half Dome. It is quieter, like a part of Yosemite still holding on to the rhythm of more than a century ago. In Wawona, even the wind moving through the meadow feels like something arriving from the past. Bobcat, the short-tailed wildcat of North America, is one of the most mysterious predators in Yosemite National Park. They live throughout the forests of the Sierra Nevada, from low valleys to pine-covered slopes more than 6,500 feet high. Yosemite covers nearly 1,160 square miles. But within that enormous wilderness, the bobcat remains almost invisible. Bobcats have existed in the Sierra Nevada for thousands of years, surviving the post-Ice Age period and brutal climate shifts. When Yosemite Grant was signed in 1864, their habitat was protected alongside the park itself. But California's wilderness has never truly been calm. Massive wildfires repeatedly swept through the Sierra Nevada, leaving behind blackened forests and ash-covered ground. At sunset, they begin moving across meadows like Cook's Meadow. Bobcats are roughly twice the size of a house cat with black tufted ears and their distinctive short tail. They hunt rabbits and ground squirrels with cold patience rather than speed. No sound, no warning, just one short leap, and the forest falls silent again, as if nothing ever happened. The Ahwahnechee people once saw the bobcat as a symbol of disappearing into nature itself. And in Yosemite, the most frightening thing is sometimes not what you can see, but what has been watching you for a very long time. As cold mist drifts across the meadows of Yosemite National Park, the first sounds echoing through the wilderness are often not wind or water. They are the howls of the coyote, a wandering predator found throughout Yosemite, from Yosemite Valley to the high mountain roads near Tioga Road. They move through pine forests, grasslands, and even areas close to humans with an adaptability that feels almost unsettling. Coyotes are ancient native animals of North America. While gray wolves nearly vanished from many western regions of the United States during the last century, coyotes survived and expanded their territory through intelligence and extreme adaptability. There was once a time when they were considered pests threatening livestock around Yosemite and were heavily hunted. But ecologists later realized that without coyotes, populations of rabbits and rodents exploded, severely damaging the park's vegetation. From that point on, coyotes became recognized as an irreplaceable part of the Sierra Nevada ecosystem. Coyotes are about the size of a small shepherd dog, with gray-brown fur mixed with pale gold, and a bushy tail hanging low while running. They eat mice, squirrels, rabbits, fruit, and even carrion when necessary. At sunrise or sunset, coyotes often appear in the meadows, suddenly leaping high before diving headfirst into dry grass to catch rodents hiding underneath. In old stories around Yosemite, the coyote was both a trickster and a survivor. And across the vast Sierra Nevada, its howl still echoes like a sound that never truly belonged to the modern world. Above the cold lakes and granite cliffs of Yosemite National Park, the bald eagle sometimes appears like a shadow gliding across the skies of the Sierra Nevada. They usually live near Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, Tenaya Lake, and large rivers where open water allows them to spot prey from hundreds of feet above. During the mid-20th century, bald eagles stood on the edge of extinction in the United States. The pesticide DDT made their eggshells so thin that many chicks could not survive. For years, Yosemite's skies were nearly empty of this symbolic bird. But after DDT was banned and conservation programs spread across the country, eagle populations slowly recovered. Nests appearing again near Yosemite's lakes and rivers became proof that the water remained clean enough to support fish populations and a top predator. Biologists view every successful nesting season as evidence that the Sierra Nevada ecosystem is still healthy. Adult bald eagles possess a bright white head, contrasting against dark brown feathers, and a wingspan stretching more than 6 feet. They use rising thermal winds to glide for hours above granite cliffs without flapping their wings. While hunting, they can dive toward the water at tremendous speed and seize fish using talons sharp as steel hooks. Besides catching fish, they also steal prey from other birds of prey whenever possible. In many indigenous cultures of the Sierra Nevada, the bald eagle is seen as a symbol of the sky and spiritual strength. Among Yosemite's famous viewpoints, there is still one quieter place that reveals the true structure of the valley more clearly than anywhere else. Washburn Point sits along Glacier Point Road, about 0.75 miles from Glacier Point. From here, the entire southern face of Half Dome and the valley's cascading waterfall system appear with remarkable depth rarely seen elsewhere in Yosemite. Washburn Point was named after Albert Henry Washburn, one of the pioneers who developed the old Wawona Road leading into Yosemite's high country. During the 19th century, horse-drawn wagons often stopped here before continuing toward Glacier Point. But what truly makes this place special is its geology. From this overlook, visitors can clearly see the giant staircase, the formation created by Vernal Fall below and Nevada Fall above, resembling gigantic granite steps carved by ancient glaciers over millions of years. This unique perspective transformed Washburn Point into a famous research site for the geological phenomenon known as hanging valleys. The environment at Washburn Point is colder and windier than the valley floor below. Lodgepole pines and juniper trees cling to the rocky edges, their twisted trunks shaped by years of frost and mountain wind. Across the wide granite slabs, marmots rest beneath the sun, while Clark's nutcrackers fly constantly between the cliffs searching for pine seeds. From this elevation, Yosemite no longer feels like a national park. but more like an ancient world shaped by granite, glaciers, and time itself. Continuing the journey through the pieces that form the soul of Yosemite National Park, pine cones nearly the length of a human arm begin appearing quietly among the forests of the Sierra Nevada. They belong to the sugar pine, the largest pine species in the pine family and one of Yosemite's most elegant symbols. These ancient trees grow on well-drained mountain slopes where sunlight filters through mixed forests at mid-elevations. John Muir once called the sugar pine the king of the conifers because of its towering trunk and massive horizontal branches. But behind that beauty lies a survival struggle lasting decades. This species was heavily devastated by white pine blister rust, a disease that killed countless pine trees throughout the Sierra Nevada. At the same time, changes in natural wildfire cycles reduced the forest's ability to regenerate, forcing Yosemite to launch conservation programs to preserve the species' valuable genetic future. Some sugar pines grow taller than 196 feet, with giant branches stretching outward like enormous arms. However, their most famous feature is their cones, measuring from 10 inches to more than 20 inches long. The largest pine cones in the world. Their seeds provide important food for Douglas squirrels, woodpeckers, and many Sierra Nevada animals. For the Wawona people, the tree's resin was once used as medicine and natural sweetener, while the image of the cone often appeared in basket weaving art as a symbol of abundance. Beneath the golden sunlight crossing Yosemite's forests, those giant pine cones still hang silently like traces of an ancient world left behind by time. The first red-orange patches often appear along Tioga Road and Yosemite's meadows, before visitors even realize they are flowers. Indian paintbrush, a wild herbaceous plant from the Orobanchaceae family, creates brilliant ribbons of color stretching from Yosemite Valley to Tuolumne Meadows and Sentinel Dome. The most striking part is that the vivid petals are actually colorful bracts, while the true flowers remain tiny and hidden deep inside. Few wildflowers in the Sierra Nevada possess a lifestyle as unusual as Indian paintbrush. It is a hemiparasitic species, able to photosynthesize while secretly connecting its roots to nearby grasses and plants to steal extra water and minerals. This adaptation allows it to survive across Yosemite's dry landscapes during drought years. Indian paintbrush usually grows between about 1 and 2 feet tall, rising among purple lupine fields to create dramatic red and violet landscapes across the Sierra Nevada. Its long tubular flowers are perfectly shaped for hummingbirds, making the plant an important energy source for Yosemite pollinators. Some native communities once used the plant for medicinal purposes and even as hair wash, although many species can accumulate toxic selenium if improperly used. Along Yosemite's granite slopes, these tiny paintbrushes still make the summer meadows appear as though nature itself has painted the Sierra Nevada in motion. Thin white streams of water floating through the Sierra Nevada wind are often the first sight greeting visitors entering Bridalveil Fall. Standing about 617 feet tall, the waterfall plunges from the western edge of Cathedral Rocks into Yosemite Valley, like a giant veil hanging between silver-gray granite cliffs. Powerful winds constantly push the mist sideways through the air, inspiring the famous name Bridalveil. Millions of years ago, ancient glaciers carved Yosemite Valley deeper than the surrounding tributaries, leaving behind hanging valleys where Bridalveil Fall now crashes downward. The Awanichi people called this place Pohono, meaning spirit of the puffing wind, because they believed the swirling gusts around the waterfall were signs of protective spirits watching over the valley. According to local legend, breathing the mist of Pohono could bring luck in love and marriage. The area surrounding Bridalveil Fall remains cool and damp throughout much of the year, allowing moss, broadleaf trees, and pine forests to thrive beside the granite walls of Yosemite Valley. Ground squirrels and moisture-loving birds frequently appear near the rushing water and moss-covered rocks. On especially windy days, the waterfall can bend sideways or even blow upward into the sky, creating an almost dreamlike scene above the valley. Bridalveil Fall also remains one of Yosemite's most important tourist stops while helping sustain the downstream Merced River ecosystem. When late afternoon sunlight passes through the drifting mist of Bridalveil Fall, Yosemite Valley seems wrapped in a glowing layer of spray floating through the Sierra Nevada air. Many people come to Yosemite National Park to see giant granite cliffs or enormous waterfalls. But the moment that truly makes them feel surrounded by wilderness is often the sight of a dark figure moving slowly along the forest edge. The American black bear appears throughout Yosemite, from Yosemite Valley to higher regions like Crane Flat and Tuolumne Meadows. Even though they are called black bears, many individuals here carry cinnamon brown or dark golden fur beneath the sunlight. After grizzly bears disappeared from California in the early 20th century, black bears became the only remaining bear species in Yosemite. But between the 1970s and 1990s, their behavior began changing because of human food. Bears learned how to break into cars, search trash bins, and steal food from campsites. Yosemite later launched the Keep Bears Wild campaign, introducing bear-proof trash containers and steel food lockers. Encounters between people and bears dropped dramatically, and the bears slowly returned to their natural behavior. Around 95% of this species' diet comes from plants, berries, pine nuts, grass, and roots. Climb trees extremely well, swim strongly, and spend winter in hollow trees during torpor. But what makes Yosemite important to researchers is not the number of bears. It is the way the park learned to protect wildlife without completely separating it from humans. In Yosemite, every warning sign about food is really reminding visitors of one simple fact: this is still bear territory. Beyond the lower forests of Yosemite National Park, the landscape becomes colder, emptier, and swept constantly by wind. At the final edge where trees can still survive, Whitebark Pine appears like something from a prehistoric world. This pine species grows across high mountain slopes from about 7,874 to more than 11,811 feet around Tioga Pass, Gaylor Peak, and Paiwayak Dome. In the harshest storms, the trees twist low against the granite in strange Krumholtz formations. Some whitebark pines have survived for more than 1,000 years through deep snow, freezing winds, and barren rock. But today, the species faces the greatest survival crisis in its history: white pine blister rust, outbreaks of mountain pine beetles, and rising temperatures have devastated populations across the western United States. In 2022, the species was officially listed as threatened in the United States. Amid that decline, Yosemite has become one of the final strongholds, still protecting healthy populations of these trees. Whitebark pine is considered an engineer of the Sierra Nevada high country. These trees slow snowmelt, stabilize fragile slopes, and help protect water supplies flowing toward the lower valleys. They also share a nearly inseparable relationship with Clark's nutcracker, because their cones cannot fully release seeds without the bird breaking them open and spreading them across the mountains. The energy-rich seeds later become essential food for squirrels, birds, and many animals before the long winter arrives. Across Yosemite's frozen mountain summits, those pale, ancient trunks still cling to the granite, like old warriors refusing to surrender. The cold surface of Tenaya Lake sometimes reflects tall, thin trees standing like spears across the High Sierra. Those are lodgepole pines, a tree species that chose some of the coldest regions of Yosemite National Park for survival. They cover Tuolumne Meadows, Tioga Pass, and high plateaus above 6,890 feet, where winter conditions last through most of the year. The name lodgepole came from the straight, lightweight trunks once used by indigenous communities to build lodges and shelter frames. But their history is also tied to Yosemite's famous ghost forests. From 1947 to 1963, outbreaks of the lodgepole needle miner spread across the Tuolumne and Merced watersheds, killing thousands of pine trees and leaving pale trunks standing silently through the mountains. Lodgepole pine is one of the first tree species to appear after wildfires or melting glaciers leave bare ground behind. They help stabilize steep slopes and retain water for the high-elevation meadows of the Sierra Nevada. However, their thin bark also makes them highly vulnerable to fire. Dead standing trees later become shelter for black-backed woodpeckers and flying squirrels. Protecting lodgepole pine today requires a delicate balance between preserving ancient trees and allowing natural forces like fire and insects to renew the forest. Beneath the freezing winds sweeping across Yosemite, the lodgepole forests still stand quietly like ancient witnesses of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Mist Trail begins feeling colder and more slippery long before visitors can actually see Vernal Fall ahead. Between the enormous granite walls of the Sierra Nevada, the 317-foot waterfall crashes into the Merced River like a white wall shaking the entire Yosemite landscape. Vernal Fall is the first section of the famous giant staircase leading deeper into the eastern mountains of Yosemite Valley. The name Vernal means belonging to spring, reflecting the season when the waterfall becomes most powerful after snowmelt across the Sierra Nevada. Millions of years ago, ancient glaciers carved through solid granite to create the giant stone steps where the Merced River now descends. The area surrounding Vernal Fall was also part of the protected land signed by President Abraham Lincoln in 1864, laying the foundation for the future United States National Park System. Every late spring and early summer, the thick mist surrounding Vernal Fall creates massive rainbows floating above Mist Trail. Granite cliffs near the base remain covered with moss and ferns because of the constant moisture. American dippers repeatedly dive into the rushing current searching for insects between dark granite cracks. Beyond being Yosemite's most famous hiking destination, Vernal Fall also plays a vital role in regulating water flow for the Merced River and sustaining the eastern Yosemite Valley ecosystem. Standing inside the cold spray of Vernal Fall during May or June feels as though all of Yosemite is moving beneath your feet through the thunder of falling water. Hidden deep inside the Granite Canyon south of Yosemite Valley, Illilouette Fall nearly disappears from the view of most visitors. Standing about 381 feet tall, the waterfall tilts downward like a white curtain between the steep granite cliffs of the Sierra Nevada. From Panorama Trail descending toward Glacier Point, Illilouette Fall appears across from Vernal Fall, like a secret stream flowing through Yosemite's wild mountains. The Ahwahneechee people once called this place Tululowiak, but the true meaning of the ancient name has been lost over time. The modern name Illilouette is believed to be a mispronunciation of the original native word. For more than 50 years, the Illilouette Creek Basin has become Yosemite's most important wildfire research area. Since 1972, the park has allowed many naturally ignited fires caused by lightning to continue burning under supervision instead of immediately extinguishing them, creating one of the most famous ecosystem restoration models in the United States. Forest openings created after fires allow wildflowers, shrubs, and many conifer species to thrive around Illilouette Fall every spring. LiDAR technology has also confirmed an increase in wildlife species and pollinating insects throughout this pyrodiversity region. The Illilouette Creek Bridge near the waterfall is one of the few places where visitors can pause to hear the rushing water before the entire stream plunges into the granite canyon below. At the same time, the Illilouette Creek Basin is now considered the world's leading living laboratory studying the relationship between wildfire, water systems, and biodiversity. During late spring, the sound of Illilouette Fall echoes through the cold, dark granite canyon, like a hidden, wild secret Yosemite has protected for centuries. Ribbon Fall lies along the northern wall of Yosemite Valley in California, right beside the massive granite face of El Capitan. With a free fall drop of about 1,612 feet, it is the tallest single-drop waterfall in North America. But for most of the year, the place nearly disappears completely, leaving behind only cold granite walls and empty silence. What makes it strange is that the tallest free-falling waterfall in North America depends entirely on a very small snowmelt basin above the cliffs. When spring ends, Ribbon Fall begins vanishing quickly, leaving dry streaks across the granite where water once flowed. The Ahwahneechee people called this place Lungyo Tuluya, the long, slender stream. The entire waterfall was formed from a hanging valley left behind when ancient glaciers carved Yosemite millions of years ago. Beneath the cliffs, a massive cone of ice often builds throughout winter before suddenly collapsing as temperatures rise. No warning, just breaking apart in the middle of the stone valley. Moss and lichen cling tightly to the granite cracks around the base of the waterfall, while peregrine falcons nest along the cliffs of El Capitan nearby. The thin stream trembles in the wind, completely contrasted against the enormous stone walls behind it. Even though it only exists seasonally, the place still attracts photographers and climbers searching for untamed wilderness. At the same time, it remains an important geological example of how glaciers and granite created the hanging valleys of the Sierra Nevada range. There is no official trail leading to the base of the waterfall. To get close, visitors must cross dangerous talus slopes beneath the cliffs. And perhaps that is what makes this place different. It never tries to keep people for very long. Along the southern side of Yosemite Valley, the granite walls of Sentinel Rock are crossed by countless thin streams of water appearing whenever snow begins melting high above the cliffs. Instead of falling as a single column, Sentinel Fall descends through multiple connected tiers before joining the Merced River below. The entire waterfall system stands about 1,920 feet tall and reaches its strongest flow only during late spring. Damp rock ledges around the waterfall are covered with moss and lichen, while Sierra Nevada pine forests stretch across the upper watershed. From a distance, Sentinel Fall looks more like fragmented silver lines sliding down a gigantic stone wall than a complete waterfall. That quieter presence attracts photographers and hikers searching for a less crowded side of Yosemite. There is no official trail leading to the Upper Cascades, and perhaps that is why Sentinel Fall still feels like one of the untouched corners of Yosemite, where water and stone continue quietly changing with each snowmelt season. Few trails in America begin inside a valley and end among mountain passes rising above 9,800 feet. The John Muir Trail starts at Happy Isles in Yosemite before stretching about 211 miles across the Sierra Nevada range. Within Yosemite, the route crosses massive granite formations, the alpine meadows of Tuolumne Meadows, and some of the park's most remote wilderness areas. Construction of the trail began in 1915, only 1 year after naturalist John Muir died. It took 31 years to fully complete the route in 1946, with countless stone stairways and wooden bridges carved by hand through harsh mountain terrain. Today, the JMT is considered the most famous hiking trail in America. Every year, tens of thousands apply for permits to complete the route. But only a limited number are approved in order to protect the Sierra Nevada ecosystem from over-tourism. The landscape changes constantly with elevation. Ponderosa pine forests inside Yosemite slowly give way to white pine forests, alpine meadows, and eventually barren rocky slopes, covered in lichen. Along the trail, hikers can see Half Dome, Cathedral Range, and sometimes even Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep, one of California's rarest mountain species. Nobody lives permanently along the John Muir Trail. But every summer, the route forms a temporary community of long-distance hikers, where water, elevation, and distance determine almost everything that still matters. After the long trails of the Sierra Nevada disappear into Yosemite's distant high mountains, another path begins climbing directly up the southern cliffs of the valley. Four-mile trail starts near Southside Drive before zigzagging across steep granite walls toward Glacier Point. Despite its name, the trail now stretches about 4.8 miles one way with nearly 3,200 feet of elevation gain, making it one of Yosemite's steepest hiking routes. The trail was first built in 1872 by James McCauley as a toll route for pack mules carrying visitors to Glacier Point. Yosemite National Park later purchased and converted it into a hiking trail. But maintaining the route has never been easy. The 4-mile trail constantly faces rock falls, landslides, and winter ice because it clings directly to towering granite cliffs. Large sections often close for repairs after snowmelt seasons and winter storms. As the trail climbs higher, the landscape shifts from oak forests and ponderosa pines into red fir forests near Glacier Point. Along the route, hikers can see Yosemite Falls, Half Dome, El Capitan, and Sentinel Rock from viewpoints that feel suspended above the valley itself. Stone stairways and retaining walls built by hand more than a century ago still remain attached to the mountainside like part of the granite. By late afternoon, sunlight often sweeps across the entire Yosemite Valley from the opposite side of 4-Mile Trail. And at that moment, the trail no longer feels like a hiking route. It feels more like a massive balcony hanging above stone and empty space. Along the northern side of Yosemite Valley, a smooth granite mass rises directly across from Half Dome beyond Tenaya Canyon. North Dome stands about 7,542 feet high and forms one of the widest viewpoints in the entire park. Unlike the sharp peaks of the Sierra Nevada high country, this formation spreads outward with a broad and rounded surface suspended above the valley below. North Dome's distinctive curved surface appeared as the upper rock layers slowly eroded away, reducing the pressure inside the granite mass over time. The outer layers eventually cracked and peeled apart into massive curved sheets surrounding the dome. The Ahwahneechee people called this place Sequoia, meaning the basket, based on the rounded shape of the summit. Across the granite surface, only lichen and small shrubs survive inside narrow cracks in the stone. But from that nearly empty space, visitors receive Yosemite's most famous view of Half Dome. From North Dome, the sheer face of Half Dome rises almost directly opposite, while clouds rest and Yosemite Valley stretch into the distance like an enormous geological landscape unfolding across the Sierra Nevada. Wind often moves across the broad granite surface of North Dome without meeting any obstacle. and when late sunlight reaches the cliffs of Half Dome across the canyon, the entire space between those two granite formations begins to resemble an ancient stone arena more than a natural valley. From the floor of Yosemite Valley, a narrow trail begins climbing directly up the northern granite cliffs, where the sound of water echoes throughout spring. Yosemite Falls Trail starts near Camp 4 before zigzagging across steep mountainsides toward the top of Upper Yosemite Fall, the tallest section of the highest waterfall in North America. The trail stretches about 7.2 miles round trip with nearly 2,700 feet of elevation gain. Construction of the trail began in 1873 and lasted 4 years, designed to bring visitors directly to the summit of Yosemite Falls. Along the route, granite surfaces polished by ancient glaciers still display visible geological scratches, but the steep terrain and violent water above the falls are what make this place dangerous. Yosemite National Park repeatedly warns visitors not to cross safety barriers after multiple fatal accidents where strong currents swept people into the deep canyon below. Higher along the trail, oak forests and manzanita shrubs gradually transition into thinner Jeffrey pine and fir forests. From Columbia Rock, the entire Yosemite Valley opens below alongside Half Dome and Sentinel Rock in the distance. But the most famous viewpoint lies near Yosemite Point at the top of the falls, where water crashes more than 2,300 feet into the canyon, only steps away from the cliff edge. By late spring, the sound of Yosemite Falls nearly covers the entire northern wall of the valley. And when standing above the cliff, watching the water disappear into the empty space below, people finally understand why this place has always been considered Yosemite's most powerful symbol. Along the high southern slopes of Yosemite, an ancient forest spreads across elevations between roughly 5,577 and 6,890 feet, among the pine forests of the Sierra Nevada. Mariposa Grove is home to more than 500 mature giant sequoias, the largest trees in the world by volume. The trail system here passes through one of America's most famous forests, from the short Big Trees Loop to longer routes leading toward Wawona Point. This place became the foundation of the modern conservation movement in the United States. In 1864, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant Act to protect Mariposa Grove and Yosemite Valley for their natural value. The first time in history land was preserved purely because of natural beauty. More than a century later, the forest underwent a $40 million restoration project completed in 2018. Old parking lots near the tree bases were removed to protect the enormous but highly sensitive root systems of the giant sequoias. Along the trails, the giant sequoias nearly block out the entire sky. Grizzly giant has survived for about 3,000 years and rises nearly 210 feet tall, while the California tunnel tree still contains a tunnel carved through its trunk during the 19th century. Between sugar pine forests and white fir trees, Douglas squirrels, pileated woodpeckers, and occasionally American black bears still appear around the massive tree trunks. Inside Mariposa Grove, the enormous trees make people seem almost invisible among ancient wood and stone. And it is that silence that transforms this place into the oldest surviving part of Yosemite. Not every rock formation in Yosemite overwhelms people because of its size. Cathedral Rocks stands on the southern side of Yosemite Valley, directly facing the massive El Capitan. This formation consists of granite cliffs and towers separated by deep cracks, creating shapes similar to the bell towers of ancient Gothic cathedrals. Millions of years ago, molten magma pushed deep underground and slowly cooled into extremely hard granite. Later, ancient glaciers continued carving the rock surface, creating the sharp vertical walls seen at Cathedral Rocks today. California geological surveyors gave the site its name because its appearance closely resembled medieval European cathedrals. By the late 19th century, this area had also become a place for some of Yosemite's earliest climbing attempts, helping shape the history of vertical rock climbing. Beneath Cathedral Rocks stretched dense pine and cedar forests along the Merced River. In the distance, Bridalveil Fall pours down from the western edge of the formation, like a white bridal veil against dark granite walls. When fog covers the valley at sunrise or sunset, the rock towers emerge faintly through the mist like a gigantic cathedral hidden in the Sierra Nevada wilderness. For many photographers, Cathedral Rocks is not simply a landscape, but a place where light and granite create some of Yosemite's most unforgettable moments. Beautiful nature and the unique cultural features of each region have always had a powerful attraction for people. Located in California's Sierra Nevada range, Yosemite Valley in Yosemite National Park is a glacial valley about 6.8 miles long and nearly 5,249 feet deep, famous for its massive granite cliffs and ancient pine forests. At first glance, Yosemite looks like nothing more than a gigantic valley. But its history is far more violent. Millions of years ago, enormous glaciers crushed granite rock, creating icons such as El Capitan and Half Dome. In 1864, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Yosemite Grant, the first law in the United States to protect nature because of its scenic beauty. That decision paved the way for the modern national park system. But long before America existed, the Awa-Nichi people had lived here for nearly 4,000 years and considered Yosemite sacred land. Now look down into the valley at sunrise. Cold mist drifts across the meadows, while Yosemite Falls crashes down from a height of more than 2,300 feet, sending echoes through the granite walls. American black bears, black-tailed deer, and more than 250 bird species live within this ecosystem. Among the ponderosa pine forests stand the giant sequoias, enormous trees that can survive for more than 2,000 years. Today, Yosemite is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most famous natural symbols of the United States. But this place still reminds humanity that nature will always be greater than anything we build.